Good evening, 𝗘𝗶𝘀.
Good morning, Christopher.
Yeah, we're coming from two different sides of the planet today, but I've had the great privilege of actually sharing the same room and same space as 𝗘𝗶𝘀 𝗬𝗨 historically. We've known each other for a couple of years, and we thought what we would do is we would just start to introduce and just talk very unscripted, casually about this new project that we're excited about, that we're getting ourselves into, that more will be revealed over the coming weeks and months as it grows. But yeah, introducing brandLingual, and you might be wondering what that's all about. But first, maybe start with some introductions. And 𝗘𝗶𝘀, would you like to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm in the industry for, I don't know, more than a decade, and I am a brand and creative strategist who is living and working in Berlin, in Germany. And I have been working in multiple different type of agencies. I started out as account manager in creative agency. I didn't have my first kind of like entry role as a strategist, so I started as account manager. And I have been working in creative agencies. I have worked in a public relation agency, but still I got a really interesting experience. I have also worked in market research agency, the big one, the Kantar, for some time. And I think that my most unique angle and why I have been invited to be part of this kind of project, or something has kind of brought me to this project, is my angle in academia. I worked for 2 years in academia and science department, very close to the academics. And then I shifted back into advertising, and it kind of that kind of depths and kind of like feeling to go deep until to find some sort of fundamental principles and fundamental kind of like things about the industry has never kind of left me. So that has been my personal kind of like a search for the past 5 to 6 years.
And maybe this is a way in which we met each other. So my background, is essentially, I'd like to think of myself as sort of a creative misfit and lifelong learner, but how I met 𝗘𝗶𝘀 was also on my own learning journey, constantly trying to learn more about my own practice, which I guess I would classify myself certainly as a brand strategist, or who began as sort of a classic account planner back in the day. And it doesn't take too long for anyone interested in learning more about planning and strategy to get onto LinkedIn, to run into someone like 𝗘𝗶𝘀 and the content she's been putting out in the world for many years. And so actually attended a webinar under her planning folklore curriculum, and yeah, was impressed, and invited her to become a guest speaker at the Miami Ad School, of which something else that I've been doing.
I was thinking about the question, and I thought like it would be interesting maybe for me to ask to you, like, how would you define like what is brandLingual in your I don't know, in your mind or from your perspective?
I'd say if we focused in on the problem or opportunity that we started to see, is that there's just a basic language problem in marketing. These two dialects. You've got the classic Philip Kotler born or Kotlerian STP, or segmentation, targeting, positioning approach, which, if you're listening to this or watching this, whether you know it or not, you're most likely, if you're in advertising, marketing, whatever, that's the point of view that has been ingrained into you, whether you asked for it or no. That is most likely that operating system that's been guiding you in your decisions. So there's STP, and then there's been an emerging, alternative to that, that is referred to as market-based asset theory, born of the work of Andrew Ehrenberg and many others, and now popularized in the modern day institute that is the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute. But because we've got these two dialects and two languages that are trying to accomplish similar things but with different intentions, it's as if you've got two languages, and there's a hope then we can become bilingual as practitioners, to constantly bridge between our clients and our colleagues and our other team members, and better understand the opportunities to go from a more sort of intuitive-based side of one's head to a more evidence-based side of one's head, and to try and keep both of those ideas alive at the same time, so that we can become better translators in helping our clients, brands grow. So the idea of being bilingual then allowed us to start thinking about, maybe this is about being brandlingual, and thus this idea is born. Perhaps this is one of the world's first online learning communities and platforms that will offer course curriculum to help people navigate between these two worlds, to keep these two worlds alive in their head at the same time, so that they can actually bridge and translate between them, and thus have more clients to work with, and in the end, actually do work that works, and increase the odds that, in fact, our efforts that we're spending together will actually account to hitting those commercial outcomes that we know our clients want to hit. So yeah, hence from bilingual is born brandLingual, and that's where that idea came from. So 𝗏𝗏, let's talk more about who we believe to be the ideal audience for brandLingual.
I did this week a session with APG Spain, and I really loved the feedback or a question in the end in a Q&A when someone from being part of the session said that I'm 46 years old. I have been working in this industry for more than 20 years, and I have been almost like raised under the Kotlerian regime of way of thinking that it has been just so very dominant in our industry. And the person said like, I would love to kind of learn how I can kind of become more fluent into evidence-based way of thinking, and how I could also help my clients to start to understand like what does it actually mean. And I think the whole idea about the brandLingual is how I like to kind of put this in a little bit maybe silly or weird metaphor, but I feel like when we think about the Kotlerian school of thought, it feels like something is missing. It's intuitive. It was the way how Kotler kind of also has admitted that he has came up with this intuitive way or this intuitive framework how to explain marketing to his clients, and also how to help other practitioners to explain marketing to their clients. But it feels like his way of thinking kind of gives us some sort of like a unicorn feeling. And what I try to encourage the members of APG Spain in the session, and also by creating the brandLingual as a platform, is that I think that we are not actually unicorns, but we need to have these two kind of horns, that we actually need to be like little bulls or calves, young calves who are like trying to, as Christopher said, like have both of the concepts open and kind of present at the same time, which means that if we think about the language and how we code a new language in our mind, it always means that we are coding new words on a previous kind of like a language or mother tongue that we are like speaking in a more fluent way. But if we think about these two different schools or opposite schools of thought, that then in my association, it feels like we need to have both of those kind of horns. It's not that we are codifying new language on top of what we know, but it's more like we're keeping the previous way of thinking open, because we still know that a lot of people in our teams, on our client side, they're still talking and living based on the Kotlerian way of thinking. But then on the other side, we need to have to kind of grow this new kind of like horn on our in our mind, or give a space in our mind to really understand how the evidence-based way of thinking works. And I think that one of my coaching students, we had a conversation, and when I started to talk about these concepts, he said like, yeah, I also have a book of how brands grow in my bookshelf. And I said like, yeah, but do you know how to translate the theory in the practice? And then the conversation kind of stopped, because it's true. We all have these books from Ehrenberg-Bass Institute in our bookshelves, and we have all read them, but it's not that kind of, it hasn't been translated in a very practical, these books hasn't been, or these ideas hasn't been translated in a practical ways, how to apply on a daily basis when we need to think about the brand strategy, or we need to think about the market, the situation in the markets, or how brands actually compete, or what is our actual consumer base, or how people are actually kind of building memories.
No, the point you made is in fact the point, in that the industry's hidden barrier here is that teams aren't learning together, and they aren't understanding, in fact, how to practice. And so one of the hopes that both of us look to bring into this is to actually expose some of those stories from the messy middle for someone that has more of that sort of bull-minded approach. What are the pros and cons and ups and downs and best practices and mistakes made in trying to help internal agency teams, client teams navigate and cross that bridge between those two worlds? I think the point that 𝗏𝗏 made is a point that should be familiar to anyone who's tried to learn any new language, which is what they don't ever tell you to do is to forget or somehow dislike your existing language. In fact, you need that as your anchor in order to translate and better understand this new language. So just like if I were to want to learn Latvian, I would not forget English. I would have those two languages that would be coexisting and then translating between the two. And that simple understanding of realizing when we're talking about segmenting or segmentation and how that might translate over to an evidence-based perspective, or a client who is very much focused on targeting, how we can talk to them about targeting in a pro-growth, not a counter-growth way, or perhaps the concept that for everyone listening or watching would be familiar with, which is the concept of brand positioning. How would you position a brand in a way that would be more pro-growth, that would align with the evidence in such a way that, in fact, would increase the odds of you succeeding? So keeping these words alive in a vocabulary without them being just these kind of strong conceptual constructs that are built around strong belief systems that perhaps might guide one in the opposite direction, but freeing those words to be used in an evidence-based way is something that we're excited about talking about, writing about, typing about, discussing and teaching about, whether it be in an online community forum that we'll be launching, as well as both live interactive sessions that we'll be offering as course lectures, as well as self-guided videos and text to read as a part of an online learning platform that we'll be launching in early 2026. So yes, if fluency is the missing skill, it is our job and our goal and our hope, our dream, our passion, which is to help fill that missing gap and encourage more people to become fluent in these two schools of thought. Maybe let's dig more into that, and we can talk about why we've designed then 3 specific courses to be open to a number of different audiences.
Good point. Yes, we have 3 different programs in brandLingual. One is dedicated to the marketing and marketing strategy and how to basically not kind of go against Kotlerian way of thinking, kind of by saying that it's wrong, keeping it alive, keeping it respected, that it's still something that a lot of people understand and know, but giving a space how to start to think in a market-based asset way of thinking or more evidence-based way of thinking about the marketing, and then how to also do the jump or lean shift from one school of thought into another. And I think this kind of like a approach is super necessary, important for practitioners. And I think the language is something that we are really working on, because we are really trying to figure out, and we will have, and this is still a little bit of work in progress, because we will be officially opening the programs in January, or programs will start in January. They will be officially opened in the mid of December. You can start to apply, but we are really working on vocabulary, how to really bring this bridge between Kotlerian way of thinking into the evidence-based way of thinking, and how to have your own language to explain that there is still room for bothism, that it's not one or the other, that one is bad and one is good, but it's more about like both concepts needs to be accessible, or there needs to be understood at the same time. In brand strategy program, we will look at brand strategy from 3 different schools of thought, and we will see how differently you can look at the core on the brand strategy. And I think it's super, super important to kind of go back to the roots and really kind of understand how the key concepts work. It's not about what is happening on the surface level, how to use AI, or how to, I don't know, apply the latest color to your brand palette or something, or latest trend to your brand strategy, but it's more about really understanding like from where the key kind of thinking is coming from. And also, as Christopher explained earlier, in our programs, it will be the concept will be that there will be kind of like a focus on theory, and then there will be huge focus on practice, and we will kind of look how to practically also apply these different views. In creative strategy, it's a little bit easier because we see similar pattern based on all our research that we have been doing for almost like a year by reading a lot of books, a lot of academical peer reviews and research materials, that we see that in creative strategy, there are more similar pattern to marketing strategy, that there are just 2 key schools of thought. And also one is very much based on intuition, that was kind of created already starting, I think, from 19th century, at least when advertising almost was established as an industry. And the other school of thought is evidence-based, that actually started somewhere around late 60s and early 70s, but it's still very much unknown for a lot of, I would say, practitioners. And whenever I talk with broader audience about this distinction, between these 2 key schools of thought, I always feel like no one is almost kind of like like no one almost has heard about the evidence-based approach to creative strategy or advertising strategy in general. So I think we have a lot of things to bring forward that hasn't been covered yet. And plus, as I said, and we have said earlier, that there will be a huge emphasis on community. So all the programs will be heavily kind of built around the community engagement, or how to engage you guys as a group who is participating into each program. So you could really co-work, collaborate, network, and also share your thoughts, and also reflect on some key topics that sometimes may be challenging, sometimes maybe it could be silly, to kind of bring out the best of you or the most wisest answers from your side. But everything will be very much focused on building the ongoing community. So it's not just a place for you to come and do a program and then kind of leave, or, I don't know, download some sort of materials and get the certificate in the end, but it's more about keeping you there, or keeping your interest alive to be part of the more bigger community, and that you would enjoy being part of it. That you will find similar minds who has maybe walked a little bit farther in their experience, and who can share their wisdom with you guys, and you can learn from them.
Yeah, it's a chance to hang out with other like-minded people sort of stuck in this messy middle, and have an opportunity to really sort of talk about ways to again bridge these gaps. These three courses, as they're currently designed, act in sort of a concert with one another. They're sort of nested, if you will. So we love our metaphors as marketers. You can think about them almost like a Russian doll or Matryoshka doll, where we've got the marketing strategy course that's really sitting on the outside. And if you were to open that up, you'd then find brand strategy. And if you were to open that up, you'd then find creative strategy. And so the marketing strategy course is really where you have a chance to learn, unlearn, relearn, perhaps what your job actually is as a C-level marketer or a client-side marketer. And simply put, I mean, we believe it needs to be no more complicated, that ultimately the job is to make your brand easier to buy. When brands are hard to buy, they stay small. When brands are easier to buy, you've increased the odds that they're going to grow. So you'll have a chance to kind of shift from obsessing over just focusing on the right message or the perfect target by somehow assuming that marketing is only about communications and advertising. Again, we'll remind people that it is about all of the 4 Ps: product, price, place, promotion. And there is no need for a 5th P or a 6th P or a 7th P. And these will be presented in a way to help you understand that there's really an operating system to help make brands easier to buy, that really does grow penetration and doesn't just make for pretty Keynote or PowerPoint decks. And so across these 9 lessons, as they're currently constructed, you'll unpack how markets really behave, why most categories, in fact, are repertoire categories, why there isn't such a thing as owning a customer who will only ever buy you, and why core concepts in evidence-based marketing, like penetration, mental availability, and physical availability, as popularized and conceived by Ehrenberg-Bass Institute, really do the heavy lifting for growth. But then how do those relate back to how we orchestrate the 4 Ps together in the marketplace? You'll see how classic Kotlerian STP thinking could perhaps translate, into an evidence-based view for reach, category entry points, and distinctive assets. So again, we're not asking you to forget one language, but to use your existing language as a means to bridge into a more pro-growth way of thinking about becoming a more effective marketer, so that you can really work fluently with both marketing languages instead of arguing that one is right and the other is wrong. There are some very clear distinctions where one is, in fact, quite effectively wrong and the other is right, but simply by shutting and burning down all bridges, it disallows the ability for people to learn together. So we're going to allow multiple ideas to be alive in our head simultaneously to then bridge people from one to the other. The marketing strategy course, like all the courses, really blend short, focused, self-guided lessons with what we believe to be very practical exercises that you could actually immediately go run on your own brand. And you'll have a chance to map real buying situations, stress test your current understanding of who your audience is, perhaps even audit how easy you are to find and buy through a simple set of frameworks that would be a part of this curriculum. And then really turn that all into just super simple, memorable, actionable plans that really do link strategy to execution, something you could do today, next week, not just someday. Just like that book you read that you put up on your shelf that someday you'll really figure out what to do with. No, this is about doing things today. So by the end of the marketing strategy course, to be honest, by the end of all of the courses, you should be able to look at almost any brief, any plan, any campaign, and really ask sharper questions. I mean, does this actually make our brand easier to buy for more people in more buying situations? And then you'll know how to fix it, and when the answer is yes, versus no. So it's really about practical application, filling in those gaps between theory and practice, and allowing us all to share in that thinking in a community setting.
Also, one of the biggest kind of like barriers for a lot of practitioners to really kind of even pick up that book from the shelf, the theory book, is to really immerse your very busy mind into academical language and to really pick up those concepts and kind of really start to even think about how do they work in reality. And sometimes it's just, these books gives the feeling, yeah, it's super nice in a way how things should need to be, but then in reality, when I go and meet my client, the situation is kind of completely reversed or completely different. And what we have done is that we have really focused on how to make the language, as Christopher said, easy to understand, easy to apply, and kind of also to easy keep in your memory. And what else we have really kind of thought about is like, let's not kind of talk about situations where we haven't been in the room, for example, not to talk about big brands that normally are mentioned in the training programs, but to really bring in our real experience with clients. And we will show through the dialogues in some sort of way how we have managed those situations, how to basically move out from some sort of trap in a conversation if your client is too focused or too immersed into the Kotlerian way of thinking or way of planning marketing, and how to kind of bring them to closer to, let's say, evidence-based view based on our examples and our experience in situations. And we will also bring you guys into the conversation, because we also believe that a lot of you have been in similar conversations, and also you guys have a lot to share. So that can be also open debate and open conversation between all of us to make each other better. Wiser.
Yeah, in the end, hopefully it is not just a course. It's really a place where we can all go when we're done arguing about personas and purpose statements and what to call a category entry point, and we actually want to just exhale and just learn more about how these things work in the real world and get out of some of the performative, like LinkedIn theater. I mean, really, this whole program is really built to help translate, sound marketing science into moves that you can actually make on a day-to-day. So you can stop just kind of collecting decks and books and PDFs and white papers and documents and really start changing how your brand shows up in the market. So right now we've got 3 tracks, again, marketing strategy, brand strategy, and creative strategy, but they really act all as one connected system. They're not 3 rival religions. They're all part of one operating system that we believe is about making brands easier to buy. And you'll learn, again, how markets really behave, how brands actually live in memory, and even have fun doing it. I mean, one of the initial thoughts that we had at the beginning here is about, this is so much about learning the fundamentals, but how can we keep the fun in the fundamentals without people feeling and going mental and crazy trying to chase all this different academical language, and make these things feel easy to learn, easy to apply, easy for yourself to even buy them, to then make your brand easier to buy. So it's like a language school in a literal sense, but we also hope and want to help you become fluent really in these 2 big language sets that exist out there in the world, classic STP and market-based asset theory. So yeah, so that in the end, you can learn how to talk to your CFO, or maybe you are the CFO. You could also learn how to talk as the CMO or to your CMO if you're on the agency side. And even the media team has a place in this, because again, to achieve penetration, we need reach, and to accomplish reach, we need continuous unduplicated reach. And so there is actually a part here about how you could take an evidence-based media planning approach, particularly in the marketing strategy direction. And again, it's not just about the underlying logic and the vocabulary, but it's ways to actually practice. And that's the real power move. In the end, we don't want anyone to feel like they're doing this alone, and that this is a cohort or a community of people who are just, to be honest, just tired of, again, all of that marketing theater that we often see out online. So these will be a combination of live sessions, shared exercises, honest Q&As, maybe even some live broadcast debates. But in the end, it's all about how the same evidence plays out in different categories, different countries, small, medium, large businesses, and with all sorts of different constraints, which are very much real in the world. So the goal really is simple. It's like when you walk back into your job, and you have the confidence because you have the language, and more importantly, you have the proof to nudge your team away from superstition towards real evidence-based practices. It's our goal to increase the odds of allowing you to do that through course material that is just really, really memorable and easy to understand.
And you said like this is a safe space versus what is going on LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn lately has felt, may feel as a place where there's like a lot of, I don't know, opposing opinions are kind of being put for just to get attraction and also to get algorithm, some sort of attraction to your post. Or that people are like really trying to oppose a super kind of extreme opinions. Like if you basically say that I want to talk about number 6, then there will always be someone in the comments who will say, hey, actually it's number 9 because I see it from the completely opposite point of view that what you are discussing. So that's why we want to create this space, our community platform, like a safe space, so you can feel that you can share your views and you can also listen and learn from others. I would say practitioners, when we have these conversations, and we do conversations through strategy pints events here, community events in Berlin, that you can feel that people are kind of lost. They can't kind of explain some sort of concept in a very coherent way. And that's why I do believe that these programs will give you some sort of like a key understanding. What are these concepts, from where they are coming? What are some sort of biases where a lot of people are kind of like, falling in, how you could be a little bit more wiser or smarter and see through them, or at least, see the red flags when these some sort of things could come on your way, or if you are facing the project, how to, move it in the right direction. So our platform would also be the place that you take a solid course program, you understand that the particular area from A to Z, at least on the core principles, and then you still have this kind of community where you can share your opinions, ask your questions, and still be connected and get engaged with others. So yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully what you sense here is you've got two practitioners who've come together because we've noticed the same pain. We're in different markets, but we have complementary strengths, and we've converged on really a shared diagnosis here. And we realize that the solution requires collaboration and community, not just bravado and solo genius. And so that's really going to be at the spirit of all of this, is building that community. And so hopefully if you've listened or watched thus far, you probably maybe even recognize a little bit of yourself in this conversation. Maybe you felt that tension between instinct and evidence, between the stories we love about belonging and brand love, and then the science that we need to help us understand just how effective and actionable that really is. And if you've ever wondered, why maybe marketing feels harder than it should be, it's not because you're missing talent. Perhaps it's because the field just never gave you the shared language. You never got the training. You never got the mentorship. You never got the opportunity to ask the right questions. You've just been looking at others and observing others and mimicking others without really understanding the substance underneath. So we've all been translating alone, and this is a chance to translate together. So brandLingual is really our way of hopefully changing that, not just by adding another framework or another myth, dressed up, as some kind of method, but by really giving people a place to practice the language of brand growth until it starts to feel natural, just like a really good Berlitz course or any good language school, that you get a chance to get conversational about things and not constantly feel like you're being tested. Although we will have some fun quizzes along the way, and have already been able to design and preview and take some of these. And in fact, Bible can make a very difficult quiz, but it's also very fun, and it really pushes you and challenges you. So this is really for the marketer who wants clarity, maybe without all the acronyms and the jargon, or for the strategist who wants evidence, without losing the spirit of creativity that's still very much alive and important part of being an effective marketer and making things that are memorable. And for the teams who want to stop arguing about all the definitions and the phrases and really start making decisions that actually move the market. And really, this is just the beginning. I mean, in the coming weeks, months, quarters, years, we're going to share more about the program. We'll go live with a chance for you to actually pre-enroll and sign up and get more information, learn more about the community, and how we're going to be bridging, again, a classic Kotlerian STP thinking and evidence-based, market-based asset thinking into one Fluent operating system. So if that sounds like the kind of fluency that you've been missing, frankly, I've been missing it. And just being a part of this is a chance for me to continue to learn. Then do stay close, stay attention. give attention, watch this space, because we feel like we're really building something that finally matches the reality, how real people work and how real people learn together. And we'll be grateful to also see you, join us at brandLingual. brandLingual.co is our domain to check us out at, and certainly somewhere in this post, we're going to make that really easy for you to join. And we're excited to help you become fluent as we become more fluent. And that's what brandLingual is all about, shared fluency.
So stay tuned. There will be upcoming interviews, conversations, and also join our platform, join our programs, and and join our community.
All right.
So thank you for a chat, and thank you for refreshing my memory today about the things that we have discussed in the past couple of months.
Yeah, thanks for keeping the fundamentals fun here this morning and this evening.
Yes.